Hey everybody, it's Chuck Cook and Lily Axelrod from
Good
Cisco
morning.
Saucer. How you guys doing
Afternoon.
today? It's afternoon for me. It's still morning for you, and still early morning for Aaron. Aaron will not be joining us today. He had a car issue,
Oh
and
no.
Greg is actually committed on something else. He may be joining us depending on when we get along, where we get in here. I'm gonna take us off the full face thing, and it's like, whoa, it's way too big. I like this screen a little bit better. But Lily, we actually had some movement yesterday in our DV 2022 litigation. As you know, we filed that like 3 weeks ago. Not even, it's been 3 weeks. I don't think it's been 3 weeks yet. Maybe 3 weeks ago. And the
You
government,
finally
of
gave us a
course,
briefing schedule.
well, the government has, they have 60 days to respond. And, a lot of our cases, they just didn't even enter their appearance for 60 days. Well, the government has entered their appearance yesterday, and I've reached out to them. And we're expecting a call with them. We'll be having a call with them today or tomorrow to go over issues in the case to see where we are. Now, I do want to apologize in advance first, Lily. I have a cough, and so I will occasionally have to hit my mute button. I do not have COVID, however. I did, unfortunately, had to spend the weekend a week ago with my grandkids, and this is kind of what happens when you have grandkids in the house. And you, as a mom, the same thing. It's whatever goes in school,
Yep.
you're going to get. And, when you
Whatever's
don't
going
have,
around, it comes home.
right. And then when you don't have grandkids around after, when they're empty nesters, you don't get that stuff anymore. You might go years without a cold. I did. I went 2 years, almost 2.5 years without a cold, without anything. And then, man, all I can say is thank goodness for Dayquil and NyQuil. The medicine of the gods. Because although last night, Lily, I took NyQuil like at 9. I think, it'll knock me out, right? Well, it's 10:30. I kind of fall off to sleep. 12:30, I'm up again, coughing my brains out. So
Oh no.
I don't know if you're like I think every house is like this. Do you have a medicine cabinet in your kitchen? Like you have like the thermometers and the Band-Aids and cough medicine, and do you have one of those in your house?
We've got some upstairs and some
Yeah,
downstairs, and then
exactly.
I
Right.
find
So
I
they're
buy
all
more
over, right?
NyQuil, and we already had a
Yeah.
bottle of it in the baby's room.
So exactly. So I went downstairs to the cabinet, this upper cabinet we have, and it's 1:00 in the morning. I know we have cough medicine. No, there's no cough medicine. And I did find this unopened box of said like mucus relief. I said, well, that's got to work. Of course, I didn't have my glasses on. I said, how much should I take? I don't know. Let's take a couple of them and see what happens. I took a couple of those. Boom, 7:30 this morning. I was like, whoa, what's going on? So I don't know what the rules were, but man, that stuff worked for them. So I've got that going on. So I do apologize that long rant. So we have a
feel
meeting
better soon.
For our DV. Now, keep in mind, we do not have a class action pending. We only representing our plaintiffs. Although I did notice, Lily, that our onboarding page is still up on the DV 2022 case. And we're not opposed to adding people. I mean, we're happy to add people. The first thing the government did is they asked for, they said there were some missing case numbers. There wasn't, but, I gave them missing case numbers. That's a good sign. I mean, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think all our plaintiffs are current now. I think
I believe so.
I don't think we have any high numbers. And it's clearly going to become current. I mean, they're not issuing them. Okay, the same thing's going to happen this year. Everybody's going to be current in June. I mean, it has to happen.
Should be.
So they may just be trying to moot our plaintiffs out. We don't have a class action, and if they moot our plaintiffs out, awesome for our plaintiffs. That's the goal, is to get our plaintiffs their green card. So we have a lot of other issues in there, and I'm sure Judge Maida is looking at this case, going, man, why don't you just moot it out, dudes? What are you fighting this same fight for again? Just issue these visas. And our clients are from all over the world. We did something very different this time, though, Lily, is we sued each consular officer.
Mm-hmm. That was a fun project.
That was.
Gracie got us the address of each consulate where any of our plaintiffs were pending. But
well, yeah, I worked at the State Department a long, long time ago. Before I went to law school. And there's a book, which you can still get today, is a booklet of the foreign affairs assignments that they publish every August as they rotate. And you can figure out who the people are, and their phone numbers are in the book, and their emails aren't, but they're, you can find stuff out. So we were able to do that, get those guys identified. And maybe when we talk to them, maybe they'll just say, hey, we'll moot your plaintiffs out. They don't want to have this fight. I know they don't want to have this fight, but we'll let folks know if they moot our plaintiffs out. We'll let you know. We'll sue again. I mean, it's March.
And for folks who are new to litigation, what does moot our plaintiffs out? That means approve the plaintiff's case so they no longer have
interview
anything to
them
sue
and make
about.
A decision. They might get
Right.
the visa, they might not.
Right. Yes. Adjudicate
it looks
the case.
like after interview, there's about an 80% grant rate. I think Curtis put that up a couple of days ago, or somebody put it up a couple of days ago. An 80% grant rate, which is great. I mean, that's higher than I thought it would be, actually, because a lot of people apply for the lottery and don't understand the rules. But there's also obviously another 30% drop-off rate who never even apply. So because they try to get the numbers picked pretty close to who might get selected in years in which they're actually doing their job.
And for folks who join the lawsuit, I think they're more likely to be approved. There are folks who are proactive about their case. They know they're eligible. They're following up. That would be my guess, that we should have a higher approval rate than the average.
Right. In fact, we probably send an email to folks. Hey, have you been interviewed? Have you been contacted? We just kind of, because they're all where they should be. So we'll think about doing that. All right. So, and we already filed our amended complaint. So we only added like 7 or 8 plaintiffs. That's all I wanted to join. But I think people may see as this complaint and us getting cases approved here. I think that's going to happen pretty quickly. Maybe they want to hop on board the train. So the next thing I wanted to talk about today is of course our EB-5 litigation. EB-5 litigation. This is really interesting. I know some other lawyer said, "Well, you shouldn't file in a group. It's not good." The reality is when you have common claims, you have every right to file in a group, and obviously it's a lot cheaper to do so. But we have literally 3 different lawsuits that we will be filing for our plaintiffs. We have a complaint for those that have a 526 pending that need an adjudication. So that's that's more in the nature of a mandamus, but it also goes to the issue of the law's change, of course, to them not adjudicating cases when they should have under prior law. So we're using that as part of our complaint.
Exactly. We're saying it's not right that they just put these cases on hold while they were under the impression that the entire program was on hold, when our argument, just as it was in the initial strategy for this lawsuit, that only the visa numerical limit was on hold. The regional central program continued to exist, and they should continue to adjudicate throughout that period. So the delay during that period was unlawful, as is the overall delay in adjudications on these.
And we think we have a really good complaint on that. Keep in mind, most of our plaintiffs' cases have been pending for 5 years. Well, in what reality is it appropriate to wait 5 years to tell somebody that they can immigrate to America when their money's already invested? I mean, it's just stupid. Just because the government says it's in a normal process, that's just made up stuff. So if they stop working, it's longer process. That's not how this works. The government doesn't get to do that.
And that's separate and apart from the visa bulletin, right? We understand USCIS has no control over the congressional limitations on the visa bulletin, but they still need to work on petitions. They don't just have to say, "Oh, you're from China, you don't get adjudicated."
Now, of course, you can now file in 54 days. You can file concurrently. So if you have a pending 526, you can file an adjustment. It's in the United States, but many of our plaintiffs are not in the United States. Most Chinese our clients of ours are outside the country. Many Indian clients of ours are inside the United States. So if you're inside, go ahead and file concurrently if you're legally here, or you can get over here. You can certainly, if you're Chinese, you can file concurrently. We've also got a second complaint. This is for people with approved 526s who are consular processing. This was the Fung complaint that we filed last year. And we are, if those plaintiffs want to re-sign up, we have a reduced fee for them to do that, to go back after the consulate. And we will do the same thing that we're doing in our DV suit, and we will sue the consular officer as well. You want to take a long time, you get the answer to the complaint. And then finally are the people that have 485s pending with at least right now approved 526s. So So, because right now you can only have a 485 pending with an approved 526. That'll change in about 55 days or so. But we're going to be suing on that. All of those cases, they're all separate. They're all subcategories. They're all going to be filed in the Ninth Circuit. They will all likely be filed in the same court as well, depending on jurisdictional capabilities of our plaintiffs. So we might end up in different district courts. There are three, maybe there's even 4 district courts in California. There's Southern, Central, Northern. There may even be an Eastern. I don't off the top of my head, but know that there's Sacramento's the Eastern. But right now we're looking at Central, which is LA, which is where I don't necessarily want to be, and the Northern District, where it would be great to be. So that's kind of what we're looking at right now for these suits to move forward. So that's the EB-5 stuff. We're still taking plaintiffs. And I will.
What I was about to add is that, we had hoped, we had planned with our first strategy to file that before the congressional reauthorization and all of that. And then when we saw that coming down the pike, as we shared last week, we adjusted our strategy somewhat. So as we separate those into 3 groups and tweak the complaints to get filed, we are still happy to accept folks. We are about to update the FAQ there, but if you go to that link, or if you just search IMMPact EB-5, you'll come to the onboarding page. And we're also happy to take questions from plaintiffs and potential plaintiffs for that case. If you want to leave us a comment on the YouTube, we usually answer questions toward the end once we've updated our ongoing litigation. We're happy to answer your questions.
All right, so that's our EB-5 litigation, and we're moving forward. I literally have the complaints right in front of me on my computer. I just got them, and so we'll be good to go very quickly here once we add in the individual folks. I do want to bring up this idea of a EB wastage by USCIS, because Lily, it's happening.
It's happening even after they promised it wouldn't. Could you believe it?
I'm shocked.
USCIS made a promise.
Look at my face. I'm shocked.
To find gambling in this establishment.
Oh, that's a great reference to one of my favorite all-time movies.
It's a good one.
All-time favorite movies. So we are likely going to end up doing a lawsuit on this in April. We're going to get together and do our FAQ for this. It's quite clear they don't have the capacity unless they do what they did last September, and that is literally take every examiner off of everything else and adjudicate cases, basically to try to moot our lawsuit out.
Maybe they need to find a streamlined way to adjudicate these.
Lily, this is not that hard. I was reading a really interesting article about this. They have made their own life harder. So, I mean,
that's what they keep saying, that they don't have enough money. They have plenty of money. They're just not doing their jobs efficiently. Well,
think about this. When I started practicing, and probably when you did too, the EAD form was 1 page.
1 page. The I-130 was 1 page. No,
I-130. 2 pages. Well, it was always been 2. The I-130 yellow was front and back, but it's still 1 page. The 485 was 4 pages.
4. The G28 was 1 back in the day.
Back in the day. So why are those forms, why is the I-130, 9 pages long? Why is the adjustment, I don't know, is it 20 pages? Some crazy thing. Naturalization on 20 pages long. They have made their own life more difficult.
Yep.
Especially by not prioritizing electronic processing of these cases. But surely there are computer scanners, Lily, that will read a filed form.
They do for the N400s.
Will create an electronic document, can then use AI to look for what you need to look for those yes boxes, check at the same time against other databases, like, oh, this dude, he's a little sneaky, there's something on him on this database, pull that out. And all the other folks just like, boom, prove. When I was in college, which is like 40 years ago, and we would go to the testing center, and we had a little bubble, and we'd fill out all the forms, and we would put our bubble in the reader. We would literally have our exam results seconds later.
Scantron.
How can we not even be at that level at the USCIS? How can we, from 40 years? 40
and
years
they
ago.
are the N400 form, even if you file it on paper, the naturalization form, you file it on paper, and then you see that they've digitized it. When I do FOIA requests for clients who have filed paper N400s, they digitize it, and they update it digitally at the interview. There's no reason that they can't. They just won't.
This is insane. I mean, what it reflects is extraordinarily poor management over decades. I mean, just decades of incredibly poor management. There's a lot of really good, you and I both know, really good individual USCIS officers who go to work every day, do their best at their job, and they are stymied by the failures of this system. It's management. There is no greater place for an exemplar of the Peter Principle than the USCIS. For those of you who do not know what the Peter Principle is that you will be promoted in management up to the highest level of your personal incompetence. And that is how it works at USCIS. I'm sorry for all your managers, but you got people there that shouldn't be managing jack squat. I mean,
there's also just over the years become, especially since 9/11, there's just escalated this emphasis on, sniffing out fraud, and this officers and supervisors having the orientation. Of course there's fraud, but everyone having this orientation of, rather than you have to prove by preponderance of the evidence, which is the actual legal standard, more likely than not, we have to make absolutely sure there couldn't possibly be anything wrong with this case, and wasting a lot of time, looking into things that.
Well, I don't know how long you've been practicing, but I like to tell people that it wasn't 9/11 that changed this. It was actually May 11, 2002, because on May 11, 2002 is when the Texas Service Center approved the change of status of Muhammad Atta from M1 to F1. That is the day that immigration began to adopt this process. Now, how that's even possibly happened is, again, management incompetence. How those files weren't all pulled out immediately after 9/11, I don't know. But from then on, what the lesson learned was and they fired senior level people over that, fired in the Bush administration. What the lesson learned was you will never, ever get fired for denying a case or delaying a case. Never. But you will get fired for approving a case incorrectly. And that's the culture. That just explains the whole culture right there. It was just, you probably go back and pull up the Washington Post articles, Wall Street Journal articles about Muhammad Atta. Because what happened is it arrived at the flight school the guy was at, and they got it in the mail for this guy. Yeah, that's how they found out about it. It's just completely bananas. Anyway, AB wastage, we are on top of that as part of this process. I will tell you, on the EAD litigation, we are still waiting on the judge's decision in that case. I do want to mention in our H-1B litigation, we had Judge McFadden, and apparently he is holding the government's feet to the fire in one of these January 6 cases, and basically forced the government to disclose where Mike Pence was during January 6, physically where he was, because of the charges they brought against this organizer of the event, that the charge basically was he had to be within immediate vicinity of the vice president. Well, the only way, the judge said, well, either you're going to tell us or you're going to drop the charge, because you can't prove the charge unless we know where he was. Well, he was in the immediate vicinity of the vice president, because now he knows he was in the Senate loading dock is where he was. Didn't even know the Senate had a loading dock, but apparently they do.
Learn something new every day.
That's exactly right. We on the other issues, which is basically our K1 cases, we have Rio, London, Manila, and Moscow. Oddly enough, the Moscow case on hold until April 1.
Our last plaintiff, give them a chance to fix our last plaintiff's case.
Yeah, so we get that. But the Manila, Rio, and London cases, we sent update after update to the court. And I just don't know what else to do. This is extraordinarily frustrating for me and for plaintiffs.
I'm happy we got a couple of our Manila plaintiffs to let me know in the last week and a couple the week before, folks who have been requesting expedite and following up, with the NVC and then with the consulate. So congratulations to those of you who have been in touch with me, who finally either had your visas issued or had your interviews set. But I know that's not the case for some of our plaintiffs still waiting.
One of the things that Greg's in is in indoor gym. Good to have you. One of the things really that I get calls about, last night I had a client call and said, hey, I just got engaged to my fiance. She's Peruvian, living in Spain, and I want to get her fiance visa. I was like, yeah, we need to have a talk about the fiance visa. It'd be way nicer if you just go marry her, because we know their priorities. We know they'll do.
I've had that conversation loads of times.
Like I mean, I really don't like the fiancé visa because it just takes a lot long. I mean, I understand why people want to do it. Oh, I want to get to know her, but I want to see how he or she reacts in America. I get all that. But just know it's no faster, essentially. Especially, it is faster to marry and get a green card at the consulate than it is to do a fiancé.
How many relationships? I think the K-1 is responsible for a lot of busted up relationships.
Oh, I agree.
Definitely.
Because people just at some point, it's like, I can't, like, I need to know what's happening in my life. I can't go on for another, 2 years of waiting on this, and I need to move on. I've got on there. I really honestly think the State Department and USCIS have ruined relationships.
Yeah,
definitely. I mean, in all of our K-1 suits, we lose a couple of plaintiffs who let us know that they've broken up.
I'm just not a big fan, but there's nothing pending. We just don't know. It's with the courts and kind of where we are. Sorry, Greg, I have a bad cough. So that is kind of a summary of all of our pending cases. Let's see some comments we got here. We've got Rom. Good to see you today. That's referring to Lily and I, by the way. So, and Greg, we updated folks that we have heard from government counsel, and we have a call with them in the next couple of days. They've asked, make sure they have a list of all of our plaintiffs and their case numbers.
Yeah, that's good.
That's a good sign, because that says just to me that they might want to move everybody up, which is great.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd love to get back in front of Judge Maida, but you got to be a plaintiff. If you don't play, you can't win. Isn't that how the lottery works?
Yeah. I think the judge will. I think we'll see a reservation, even if they try and moot out all our if they're going in that direction.
Well, if we have any plaintiffs left, because it's not a class action.
We're not the only case.
No, there's others out there as well. I think we're the only one in front of Judge Maida, though.
That's true.
I think so. So, Luca, good to see. I agree. Suing the individual plaintiffs, and we'll do the same thing in the EB-5 CP suit. We'll name the consular that we're suing at. Greg, just in time, the Senate to vote on America Competes this week. Greg, is that true? What is going on?
There was a cloture motion. What I was trying to confirm last night, I may have given bad information on Twitter, but I have not had any confirmation that the immigration provisions are in the Senate bill that's coming. So America Competes already passed the House with with a bunch of amendments on immigration that were added that are great. The Senate had already passed. This is what I'm not quite sure on. The Senate had already passed a version of this bill that didn't have the immigration provisions. So what I'm trying to understand is what is happening on the Senate side. Are they just taking up the House bill as it is? In which case, I would be very surprised if they can get 60 votes on there. So it's kind of a moot point. So I may have been wrong. I don't know if the immigration provisions are in there or not. And Parth, and it sounds like he's already gotten information elsewhere that it is. So I'm willing to admit that I may be wrong on that. The usual channels of information that we have as far as what's happening in bill negotiations I haven't heard from anybody yet that's told me that the Senate has that there are votes in the Senate to make it happen on there. And so essentially we're going to need 10 Republicans on there that are okay with the immigration provisions. This is not like Build Back Better where they were trying to do it with 50 Democrats. They're going to have to have Republicans on this, and I haven't heard that it's in there. And Chuck, I don't know if you have or not. I mean, it's great.
I haven't heard of any Republicans that are endorsing the bill. I mean, Schumer announced last week that they're basically going to pass their version of the Competes Act and send it back to the House. But what's in it is that we don't, at this point, we don't really know. Does it have the Durbin-Tillis changes? We don't know. And they talked about doing this yesterday at 3 p.m. was when they were going to have a vote or talk on this. But I think they were a little wrapped up in something else yesterday.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they between the Supreme Court nomination and the Ukraine war, I'd be surprised if they can get this deal done. But maybe this is the time to do this deal when no one's paying any attention.
Well, I do know that Chuck Grassley today said, as part of his opening remarks in the hearing, that, hey, I'm going to have to run out and take some votes. So, maybe they are doing something on this.
Yeah.
And frankly, if Grassley's got his H-1B stuff in there, he'd probably vote. And
that's a huge thing for Chuck Grassley.
Oh.
If you can get that in there, and he might be willing to twist some arms to get
he's been trying to do this for decades.
Look, the big thing that's in there is the green card provision, as far as the STEM provision, which would be massive if that's in there. And that's a Republican proposal, because it's PhD level STEM STEM folks on there. So if you could make a deal with Republicans on an immigration issue, this might be.
Well, again, immigration is only ever going to pass if it's attached to something else. So if there are other provisions, the Compete Act goes after China, it goes after Russia. There's a lot of red meat stuff in there for Republicans. So, if they, and the thing is, it's not like we're letting in more people than we were going to let in anyway. We're letting all these people in. This is nothing different than we would normally do.
Yeah.
Better.
There's like 10 amendments on different immigration things. And people may recall that I wrote a summary up of everything that's in that bill. I have not heard a peep from the Senate as far as what they're looking at, other than what Chuck is talking about, which is I've had a conversation with some staffers regarding the Durbin Grassley language, mainly because they screwed over doctors accidentally with the language. And that's, I understand, has been on there, but there is a lot there that I would guess that the House would be okay with those provisions. I
think so.
If they went their way. And the other thing is, it kind of deals with the lawsuit that we had indirectly, because it takes all the incentives out for that, because most of those folks are going to be pretty low on the rankings as far as their odds of getting an H-1B visa, so they can enter themselves 20 times. But there's not going to be very many visas left by the time you get down to tier 7.
There's going to be very few bachelor's degree visas left at that point.
Right.
Great question here. This Rower is one of our clients. So why do people with higher numbers get in the same country? I'm assuming in the same country area, same worldwide geographic area. Why do they get picked for somebody else? Well, that might have to do with, on June 1, they had all their documents into the NVC, back when the NVC was pre-approving cases, right? Maybe they acted really quickly. Maybe your consulate is just not interviewing and their consulate is. Or maybe they like the other person more. I don't think that's the case, but a lot of this to me is like driving home from work.
Wait, it's not first in, first out?
Oh my!
That's what they tell the judge every time, that you got to take people in. You got to take people in order, Chuck.
This is like driving home from work. One night you leave your office and you hit every green light and you're home in 5 minutes. The next night you hit every red light, same time, you're home in an hour. Why? I don't know. That's how the system just works sometimes. Sometimes do get done faster. And no, it's not a first in, first out. It's not a higher number first. Here's the block of numbers we're using. If you're anywhere in there and your stuff is done, you should be in. There's also something Curtis pointed out I thought was really useful, is there appears to be some manipulation between the NVC and the consulate, and we ran across this previously ourselves too, is consulate saying, well, we take whatever cases NVC says, and NVC says, well, we only send cases they ask for.
Oh yeah.
That's still the problem. I don't think, and I think that's a logistical management problem. I don't think that's a bad actor problem. I think it's just incompetence.
Yeah. That's why we tell people copy both. These on email.
Always when you email them.
Don't because they will always blame the other side. If you
Now, we have not told our plaintiffs to email consulates yet. Let's hold off on that. Let's see how our meeting goes this week and see what happens.
Sure.
Osama here, the base of interviews. Of course, I know Australia just opened up started doing interviews again. I mean, there's not a lot of Australians that immigrate through the lottery, but they hadn't done any. Now they're doing some. Other countries haven't done any. Other countries have done a lot. So, I mean, it just, again, they'll use COVID as an excuse. They'll use staffing as an excuse.
They're waiting on the new variant.
Yeah, it's gonna,
Then
Europe, if you're in Europe, you better be getting your visa now, because this summer
they've been holding off, waiting on the new variant, so now they can. So then they have a new excuse.
But I thought COVID was over. We don't need a mask anymore. We're perfectly fine now. So yeah, this idea about the pacing, this is why I really want to get in front of Judge Manis, because how is it that you are not doing this? You're still prioritizing them illegally. You might not have an official memo, but in fact, you're doing it. It doesn't matter when you have a memo. In fact, you're doing it. You're not doing what you were doing before, and that's illegal. All right. This is a really good question. It pertains to premium processing. And do you think it'll go to 485s? Greg, I cannot imagine a day when they premium process a 485, mostly because of the background checks they have to do.
Yeah, I mean,
and they have no control over them.
About the 485 is it's all about sort of the last screening before somebody gets to remain permanently in the United States. I don't see them giving up the flexibility on that, or they just charge a fee that's like way higher.
$50,000.
I don't think it'll be 50, but I do see, like, for $4,000 or $5,000, they might decide to put a couple hours in up front. So
basically, you'd be like double diamond on Delta, where they pick you up from the plane in a Porsche and drive you to your car or drive your connecting flight. That's the level of premium processing that the service with USCIS will offer people. Is that
Delta 360? Isn't that what they?
And they'll still mess it up.
I thought it was double diamond 360. All I know is I've never been invited, even though I've got 400,000.
I have no idea what it takes to get into that group.
You gotta be special. I think it's all about how much money you spend with them. They don't care about your flights.
Not even your money. If you got control for a company, that's what those are the people.
Like, so the embassies, yes, the embassies all know the plaintiffs. Absolutely. Yeah, they do know that now. Raquel, EAD, is there a deadline for Judge Leon to rule on the motion to dismiss? No, there are, as all our K1 plaintiffs know, there is no deadline. Most judges, the deadline is, I want to get this off my docket. I want to be done with it. It could be, I think they all should be approved. I don't want to make a decision that says that, because I don't want to set precedent. Maybe that's why. I don't know. I could speculate all day long as to why, but I just don't know. Judge Leon is not one to sit on cases, though. That's just not his modus operandi. This is it's awful, Raquel. I know. It's absolutely awful. That's the EADs, I think. And our EAD lawsuit is, I think it's, the judge, it's class action. How does he not just grant the class action? This is keeps repeating.
You may have talked about this already, but with all the plaintiffs being already approved on there, let's just say that we lose the motion to dismiss on that issue.
We'll just refile, Greg. We'll just get
start over.
So that's what I'm saying. It's like, do you think the government understands that we are just coming right back with a bunch of more plaintiffs on there? Why, wouldn't they be interested in potentially like avoiding that result? And the judge, do you think the judge understands that as well, that there's nothing to stop us from?
Well, we've said it. Literally said it in our brief, that there's an unlimited supply of potential plaintiffs that we can literally add to this case anytime. And you want us to keep doing that? We'll be happy to do it.
Yeah.
This thing though is they want to keep recategorizing. Now our special healthcare and childcare workers. All right, now you have a special rule. You call us, and we'll dig through the box and find your EAD and approve you. At a certain point, who is essential? Who is important? Who should get priority? Nobody should get priority. They should all be done expeditiously. That's the rule.
Or don't use
an EAD anymore. Just say you filed it, you're good to go. Incident to status. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
By the way, on that incident to status thing for E's and L's, which there is a settlement, they're still not doing it right.
my friend Sam Peake has been, who you may know on Twitter.
I love Sam on Twitter. He's great.
So Sam's been researching that issue regarding EADs, and my idea that I've been promoting of not mandating that the card be used and using a receipt instead on there. And some of the agency officials have been pushing back, saying, well, if you did that, then somebody could work illegally with just the receipt, because if we deny the benefit on there. And it was like, well, maybe that's a good way to promote E-Verify. Maybe, if you want that, if you uses E-Verify and you have a receipt, then you're not, that it only works if that, if you do.
The problem with that though, Greg, is E-Verify is a snapshot in time. It's not set up to say, hey, by the way, this guy's no longer employable. It doesn't, which is crazy. Why doesn't it tell the employer who used it, hey, you E-Verified this guy a year ago, his EAD is expiring. Are you updating it? It doesn't do that.
Or you could require. I mean, you could require that there has to be an annual check with in the E-Verify. There's a lot of ways you can do it that would be super simple and not a burden.
Greg, every HR person that's listening to this just had their head explode.
But even so, I mean, what is the big deal about if somebody? First of all, somebody could work illegally with an expired card too.
Well, technically, doesn't it actually happen when
that already does happen?
Sure
they have the auto extended categories already, in which sometimes they auto extend your EAD and then they deny the underlying. I mean, that situation already happens.
Well, but
imagine it happens a little bit more.
No.
Is it not worth it?
Actually, I was wrong. What I meant to say was, let's say you get a 1-year EAD and your underlying benefit is, like your adjustment is denied.
Right, that already happens.
On there, somebody could be working with.
Sure, they are.
Right. So what's the difference?
There's no difference.
None.
That's the thing.
They're already doing that. That
Right.
thing already exists. They're just.
This is another example of the service looking for ways to not grant a benefit,
right?
Instead of looking for ways to solve a problem affirmatively.
And also not properly weighing, weighing fraud over everything else. Let's say 1,000 people work, without permission for a couple of months versus hundreds of thousands of people having their families turned upside down, not being able to work when they should be. I mean, what's the cost benefit?
Yeah, a lack of imagination
and empathy.
Yeah,
empathy.
Bad combination.
Empathy. A word rarely spoken at the USCIS. Any updates on the lost visas? No. The update is we have an appellate briefing schedule, which basically mirrors I think it may even be longer than the government. So, they're going to go back to the judge Maida and they'll say, hey, we asked for expedited. The court gave us XYZ and oral arguments are in September, which means we're not going to get a decision this year. I mean, obviously I'm going to argue with the judge, say that's not expedited. Our expedited schedule had us having oral arguments in May.
Right.
And the court, the government opposed that. That's not expedited. So they're just lollygagging. You should lift your stay and make them issue the visas. We'll see.
And maybe once the judge sees, do you think there's any hope that once the judge sees that the expedited appeal is not actually so expedited that he may reconsider the stay?
Well, I'm going to argue that. But what may happen is, well, if I deny it, if I make them do it, they're just going to go to the Court of Appeals. I said, great, go to the Court of Appeals. Let us argue there earlier.
Yeah.
Because starting in about, technically in about 20x days, the system will enable them to do their job, right? April 17th, some sort of magic.
Supposedly. And all the DV 2022s will be adjudicated by then, according to the state, because they front-loaded all of them.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Right. The front loading's done, right, on March 31st. Go plaintiffs, will the KCC give priority? Well, KCC's not going to issue any visas unless the judge lifts the stay. So, and keep in mind, again, the KCC is technically not involved anymore, right? It's up to the consulate. Ukrainians are, in fact, getting priority in Frankfurt. There's a memo on that went out to the Department of State. They're also allowing for, this is actually really important, if your fiance is a Ukrainian or Yemeni or somebody else, I forget the third country, and you get married, they'll process the I-130 at post, which is a reversal of what they reversed under the Trump administration.
Do you think under that memo, it's automatically happening for the expediting Ukrainians, or they need to be proactive in asking?
I think you need to be proactive. You need to be proactive.
Can't hurt.
Yeah, I think you gotta be proactive. Will go be processed as an individual case? Well, everything's, when they say consolidated, that means all the arguments are at the same time. And there may just be one decision, but there'll be a just like if you read the briefing, our first brief in our appeal, so our cross appeal is due when we file our response brief to the government. So we actually get 2 briefs, and the judge said they cannot exceed 18,000 words. That's a lot of words. That's all I can tell you. A lot of words. That's about 50 pages. So 4 pages is 1,000 words. That's a lot of that.
On your way to a book.
That's a book. I don't think we'll be taking that much. Raquel, is there a deadline for Judge Leon? We talked about, I answered that already. Craig Littleton, hey, ladies and gents, can you please send updated complaint to your DV 2020 complaint? Only the complaint was filed. The only difference in the complaint was names. Nothing else changed.
Yeah.
So if you're an original complainant, you don't need to worry about the updated one. If you are an updated plaintiff, we'll be happy to send you that. Just email Aaron. Email Aaron. I was going to say email Lily, but don't email Lily. Email Aaron. Any hope for DV 2021? Again, this is where we are. I still think our case is solid. I think we're on solid, equitable grounds. There's no doubt the government acted in bad faith. I do wish Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson was still there at the DC Circuit Court of Appeals, but she's not going to be. And her hearing has been delightful to watch. Watching that compared to the Kavanaugh I like beer hearing is just so refreshing. I like beer. I still like beer. That's all you need to know about me. Notification from the Sunlight Valley IFT automation service. Oh, Greg, I think that's referring to the Competes Act.
Oh, okay. Thank you,
Art. Do federal judges have an option to ghost all the cases? No, they don't. That's a good question. Way to use modern terminology. This is great. Do you have anything about U.S. interpretation of concurrent filing? I think he's talking about the EB-5s, the concurrent filing that they're going to be allowing as part of it.
Yeah.
And no, CIS has been mute for the last week or so on.
They do have, our reading of the statute, and we've kind of been going, like, we've had a lot of discussions ourselves on it. Our reading of the statute was that it was available, but USCIS hasn't announced it. Is that correct? Because the 60 days shouldn't apply to that provision for people that are.
Do we understand if that's available to folks who are grandfathered and therefore?
Well, that's what I'm saying. If you're grandfathered, the argument is that you should be able to file a 485 at this point.
Now,
you're not, then I think you have to wait for the 60 days.
That's how I interpret that rule as well. Once again, excellent drafting by the Congress.
For new filers, you have to wait 60 days. If you have a pending 526 already, you're grandfathered and you're not covered by the 60-day rule.
So if you're in the States,
that's the way I interpreted it. But
I agree.
We don't know that that's how it's being created everywhere.
Marcus says the Visa credit Visa journey following your efforts. Some of them have to when we're pulling together, reaching out there for help for expediting the process. The government. I will tell you, they don't expedite anything. A lot of EAD folks. Because their position is first in, first out, which we know is not true, but they just live and die by that mantra. And why should you get special benefits? I'm not special benefits. I just want you to be competent. All I'm asking for is a basic level of competence. I'm not asking for anything to be expedited. I'm going to use that in my next oral argument in front of the judge. I'm only asking for basic competence, Judge. Any update on the H&B lottery abuse? That's a good question. I haven't heard anything. We're going to know a lot more on March 31st. When did last year they start announcing? Was it It
was at the end of March.
It was like the last couple of days, right? 30th, 20th, 9th, 23rd. So next, I would suspect maybe Monday we'll start hearing.
Yeah. So I think what'll be interesting on that is, whether the lawsuit, the main I think the main benefits that came out of the lawsuit, I mean, even though we obviously didn't get the result that we were asking for, was
you can call back in 10 minutes.
Right, was the screening that they now have, and the the adaptation that has to. And I guess the real question is how much of an impact that last minute change, which I think was a direct response to our law.
I think that's going to have a great time about this last week. I think it's going to have a great impact.
Yeah. So we had our predictions that if we lost and nothing changed, that what the numbers were going to look like on there. And we had we had some of our data people helping us come up with those numbers on there. I think what'll be interesting is to see how much of an impact this last minute change had that the government made to, basically, make the judge happy, which I think it was a good strategy on their part on there, because I think it helped them get the result that they were looking for in the case. I guess the question will be, from an actual real world point of view, how many people
I think so many applications had been ready to go by that point that it didn't make much of a difference. I still think there's going to be close to 500,000
right
that'll be submitted. But all right, let's see a couple more questions here. Yeah, CB, man. I mean, we hear from we have empathy for this, and it's clearly the government does not. Yeah, and Vince pointed out there was mass law. It was one guy that we saw had boasted that he had filed like 100 H-1Bs for him. I mean, I don't even know how you do that, but I don't doubt something like that has happened. All right, everybody. I think we're good for today. I think we got our questions answered. We appreciate everybody signing in. We'll see you next Tuesday here on IMMPact Litigation. I'm live tomorrow at 2. Greg, are you on later today?
I will be on in an hour and 13 minutes.
Awesome. Well, I'll be watching with bated breath.
No,
Lily, thank you as always for joining us. Thanks for tolerating us.
If you were watching, I'll be surprised. You have nothing better to do.
I may have clients. We'll see. I'll see how the DayQuil works again. And go from there.
Feel better.
All right, you guys have a great day.
Chuck. Feel better soon.
All right.